Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kari, and today I'm going to be doing a book haul. I think I have just over 30 books that I'm going to haul for you today. Now, I haven't done a book haul in a really long time, so I have bought some books since my last book haul that I'm not going to haul today because that goes way back. That would be so many books that I've already read, I've already talked about on my channel. So these are just the most recent books that I've bought probably over the last, I'd say, 2 months. So let's jump into it and see what I've gotten. I do want to say before we begin that I probably won't say a lot about the plot of each of these books because I really like to know as little as possible about books when I go into it. Like, as soon as I hear enough about a book that has me sold on it, I don't want to hear anything more about it, and I don't reread the back of the book before I start reading something because I really just like to be surprised by everything. And sometimes I feel like the back of the book even spoils some stuff, or like stuff that's on the back of the book, it takes half of the book to get through all of that. So anyway, all that to say, I'm not going to go into huge details about the plot because I'm actively trying not to remember what it's about, but I'll do my best to tell you what sold me on this book, what made me want to read it in the first place. All right, the first books that I'm going to talk about are actually the books that I've most recently bought because the Women's Prize for Fiction longlist was just announced this week. And as you may know, if you've watched my 2023 reading goals video, I'm committing to reading the entire shortlist this year, which in 2021 and in 2022, I got really close to reading the full shortlist each of those years. Like, I think in 2021, I read 5 of the 6 on the shortlist, and then in 2022, I think I read 4 that were on the shortlist. But this year, I definitely want to read all of the books that make the shortlist. And anyway, I'm gonna have some other videos dedicated 100% to the Women's Prize for Fiction, so I'll talk more about that later in another video. But basically, since the long list was just announced, that always means that I get really excited about some new books that I've never heard about, and I go immediately and buy as many books as I can that I'm interested in. So the long list is 16 books, and so far I've bought 5 of them. These 5 I'm the most excited about, and I want to prioritize them. And then once I read these 5, I'm gonna move on to some other books, and obviously once the shortlist is announced, if I haven't read something that's on the shortlist, then I'm going to buy those books and buy those as well. But anyway, all that to say, these are the 5 books from the shortlist that I've already purchased. First on the list is I'm a Fan by Sheena Patel. First of all, I have to say that so many books on the long list this year are beautiful. I mean, absolutely stunning. Like, you're going to see in the ones that I've already bought so far, they're all beautiful, but so many other ones that I haven't bought yet are also so beautiful. Like, it's incredible. Like, I think to predict the long list, you just need to go see what the most beautiful books are. So anyway, this is I'm a Fan, and as you can see, it's a pretty small book. It's not that long, and I really love this purple cloth bound cover. Like, stunning. I love it. So what I know so far about this book is that it follows a woman who's stalking a woman on Instagram because these 2 women are sleeping with the same man. So it sounds like a really interesting social media book. Next is a book that I already had my eyes on. I really wanted to read it, but I was holding out for the American cover because I couldn't find it anywhere here in Paris. Even though I really loved the UK cover, I really kind of felt like I wanted the US cover. But then once the Women's Prize for Fiction announced this book and they were showing all the beautiful aspects of the UK edition, I was like, okay, no, actually I do want the UK edition. And that's Maggie O'Farrell's The Marriage Portrait. So this is the US edition, which I love. Both of these editions are beautiful. I love them both. I wish I could have them both. Maybe if I love it, I will still buy the US edition because this cover is beautiful. But I absolutely love this UK cover as well. So I love this cover itself. And look at these end papers. And then look at the bare cover. I mean, it's just absolutely stunning. I love this so much. If you have the US edition, tell me if the end papers are really beautiful as well, and if the bare cover is as beautiful as this one. I would love to know. So anyway, I really don't know too much about this one other than that it's a historical fiction about the Medici family. And I'm really interested in Catherine de Medici because she's one of the Medicis that came to France, and a lot of crazy shit happened with Catherine de Medici, so I'm really interested to see this historical fiction about somebody else in the Medici family. Next is one that I wasn't sold right away when I heard about it when it was announced on the long list, but when I went to look into it, I've never seen so many positive reviews for a book before, like in my life probably. I don't know, I saw so many good things about it, and that's Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. So when they announced it on the Women's Prize for Fiction long list announcement, they said that this is a retelling of Charles Dickens' David Copperfield, which I've never read David Copperfield. Actually, I have it right here. No, I haven't read this yet. It's a chunky boy, so no, I haven't read this yet, but I do have it. So when they said that, I was like, well, I haven't read David Copperfield, so I probably wouldn't appreciate this story because, you know, I would miss some of the references. But as I've heard people talk about the long list more and more, everyone is saying you absolutely do not have had to have read David Copperfield before you read this. And everybody's saying such incredible things about it. So all that I know about it is that it takes place in the Appalachians and that it's about the opioid crisis. But like I said, everybody's absolutely raving about it, so I definitely want to get to it. Also, like I said, beautiful cover. So on this one, the in papers are cute. I mean, it's just black with white dots. But when I tell you, when I opened the package with this book in it, and I was just checking it out, you know, I was taking off the dust jacket to see the bare cover, and I was just turning the book around to get a good look at it. When I tell you, when I turned and saw this, I literally gasped. I had no idea that there was going to be stenciled edges on this, and they're so beautiful. So I know people who read a lot of fantasy, a lot of those fantasy books have really cool stenciled edges, and I'm always really jealous of that, but as someone who doesn't read fantasy, I never have stenciled edges on anything. Like, I'm lucky to get sprayed edges on anything. So this is my first stenciled edged book, and I love it. It's so beautiful. Anyway, really excited about this one. I've heard such good things. The fourth book that I bought from the long list, it's arriving this afternoon in the mail, and that's Children of Paradise. So this one was pitched by the Women's Prize for Fiction as taking place in a cinema, and things start to be hallucinatory, and things get pretty weird. Say no more, Women's Prize. I'm sold. Also, so this title, Children of Paradise, that's clearly a reference to a very famous French movie, Les Enfants du Paradis, and as someone who lives in France and I really appreciate French cinema, I'm pretty excited about this. And I think each chapter is like titled a really famous movie through history, so we'll see. I mean, as soon as they said hallucinatory and weird, sign me up. So that will be arriving later this afternoon. And then the fifth and final book that I bought so far from the long list is one that I pre-ordered because even though it's been released in the UK, this is the UK cover, which when they showed it on the announcement video, I was like, oh my god, it's another book of a woman hiding her face. Like, this is gonna be my type of book. I don't even know what the synopsis is, but I've had excellent luck with books with women hiding their faces. Sorrow and Bliss, which was a Women's Prize shortlist book, which I loved. Vladimir, which the US edition has a woman hiding her face. So I was like, this is my genre of book, woman hiding her face. So I did really appreciate the UK cover, but then when I started looking into it, I saw that in the US, at the beginning of April, they're releasing this US edition. And this book is clearly called Cursed Bread. And since the US edition isn't coming out until the beginning of April, I pre-ordered the US edition on Book Depository because I figure I already have my work cut out for me to be reading these 4 books from the long list, so I can wait for Cursed Bread to arrive to get the cover that I want. Honestly, I don't even remember at all what this book is about. I think it's something to do with the wheat or something in a town gets poisoned, hence cursed bread, that everybody's gonna get sick or something like that. But the vibes that the announcement video gave off that it's gonna be something like Sorrow and Bliss, Vladimir, that kind of book. And we already know how I feel about those 2 books. So I was sold and I can't wait for this pre-order to come in. So those were all the Women's Prize long list books that I've bought so far. Now I'm going to move on to additions that I've made to my Clothbound Classics collection. So as you can see, I absolutely love Clothbound Classics. I love adding to my collection every time that there's a new book. So and since my last book haul, I've added a good few books to the collection. So first of all, they did start making these little Clothbound Classics for like short stories. So I have gotten The Nutcracker by ETA Hoffman, and I just think it's really cute. There's a bunch of other ones that I want to get to add to this collection of little Clothbound Classics, but I did get The Nutcracker. But then the rest of the ones that I've gotten so far are to add to my regular size Clothbound Classic collection. And I'll start with the most recent one that just came out is The Master and the Margarita by Mikhail Bulgakov. This is on my list of 23 books I want to read in 2023, and I specifically did that because I knew I would be motivated to be reading it since I knew the Clothbound was coming out. So I definitely want to get to this one this year. I'm excited to read this one. Then another new one that just came out very recently, like a month ago I think, is The Life and Opinions of Tristam, Shandy, Gentleman by Laurence Sterne. To be 100% honest with you, I have no idea what this book is about, but it's absolutely beautiful. I love this new cloth color that Coralie Bickford Smith used. There's no other books in this shade, and I hope that she does more in this shade because it's absolutely beautiful, this purple. Next, I got a French classic called The Outsider by Albert Camus. Same thing with the purple Tristam Shandy. I really hope that she starts doing more of this pink color. There's so many blue Clothbound Classics, like we need to step out and do more purple and pink because these are stunning. Speaking of blue Clothbound Classics, another pretty new one is The Turn of the Screw by Henry James. I really want to read this because I love Gothic literature, so I think I'm going to enjoy this, so I'm excited to get to this one. Next, I have Ulysses by James Joyce, which I really like this pattern that Coralie Bickford Smith put onto this book. And finally, one that I've been trying to add to my collection for so long, but it was sold out for a really long time for some reason, but luckily it came back into stock, and that's Don Quixote by Cervantes. So next is a new release that I've been really looking forward to ever since I did my anticipated release video for winter, simply because of the cover. Like, I love this cover, and that's Big Swiss by Jen Beagin. Look at this cover. I think that this is awesome. So like I said, I've been really looking forward to this one. Basically, the main character is a transcriber for a sex therapist, and so she starts to become really attached to one of the patients, and obviously since she's a transcriber, she becomes really familiar with the voices of a lot of the patients. So one day, she hears one of the patients that she's really obsessed with. She nicknames her Big Swiss. She hears that patient's voice out in public, and so she's able to put the face with the voice, and then we see what happens from there. Next is another new release, and it's The Protégé by Jody Gehrman. So this is a thriller in an academic setting, which if you know me, you know that I love academic settings and thrillers, so perfect combination. So I think that this follows multiple perspectives, like one from a professor and then one from one of her graduate students. And I know that it's a story of revenge. It's been compared to Samantha Downing's books and also Lane Fargo. So if you enjoyed any of those, it sounds like this would be up your alley. Even though I didn't enjoy They Never Learn, I really enjoyed the Samantha Downing books I've read. So I'm gonna hope that this is more like Samantha Downing and less like Lane Fargo, but I think this is gonna be good. Next is another new release thriller, and that's The Kind Worth Saving by Peter Swanson. So in 2017, I think it was, I read The Kind Worth Killing by Peter Swanson, and I loved it. And I'm pretty sure that that's probably one of Peter Swanson's most successful books, and so obviously it'd be interesting for him to make a sequel, and so that's what this is. I think that this follows Lily, which is the female protagonist in The Kind Worth Killing. Honestly, I don't remember anything from The Kind Worth Killing, so I want to reread that before I read this one, but I'm really excited to reread that because I remember so little. It'll be like reading it for the first time again, which I loved reading it for the first time, so that'll be fun. Next is a short story collection called Out There by Kate Folk, which I had heard pretty good things about, but then the other day I watched Books Like Whoa review about this, and she absolutely sold me on this book. I bought it as soon as she was done talking about it, so I'm gonna link that review down below if you're interested in hearing more details about this, to hear what sold me on it so much. I am very excited to read this. Normally I'm not really into short stories, like I need more to really love something, like a full book, you know, but this really sounds like it could be for me, so I'm really excited. I hope that I love it. Next is one of the most beautiful book covers ever, Sirens and Muses by Antonia Angres. I think that this follows some art students in New York and takes place in their art school, so you know, again, academic setting, I love that. New York, awesome, and I've heard really good things about this. I'm excited to read this one. Next is a poetry collection called Bargain Bin Rom-Com by Lena Norms. Lena Norms is actually a YouTuber who I adore. Everything that she makes, her channel is amazing. If you don't know who she is, I'm gonna link her channel down below. You should definitely check her out. Everything she makes is excellent and very, very smart, but she also writes poetry. Now, as someone who doesn't read a lot of poetry, Lena has sold this as poetry for people who don't normally read poetry or are trying to get into poetry, and so I really wanted to give this a shot. Also, I just wanted to support her because I really enjoy her channel, so I'm looking forward to reading this. Next is another short story collection. Believe it or not, even though I said that I have a hard time connecting to short stories, but I'm going to give Bliss Montage by Ling Ma a chance. I do think I'm going to have more luck with Out There than Bliss Montage, but I do want to give this a try because I know Ling Ma has gotten a lot of good reviews, especially with their book Severance. And this little piece on the back of the book, it says, "The outlandish and the ordinary are shockingly, deceptively, heartbreakingly alike." So I don't know, I'm intrigued. I have my fingers crossed for this one, but we'll see. Next is a thriller called The Winter People by Jennifer McMahon. This takes place in Vermont in two timelines. One of the timelines is in 1908, and basically the mom of the family was found dead. And then in the today timeline, we have people living in the same house that happened in, kind of learning more and more about this like spooky past of the house. Next, if you watch my most recent reads video, you'll know that I've recently gotten into doing yoga. And so I got this book to learn a little bit more about yoga and the practice and the philosophy behind doing it, and it's The Heart of Yoga by TKV Desikachar. I did a lot of research to find out what the best books about yoga are, and a lot of people recommended this one. I have already started reading it, and I'm really appreciating it. As someone who is a beginner, it's very accessible. I really understand everything that they're explaining, so I'd really recommend this, at least what I've read so far, to any beginners looking to get into yoga. If you know of any good books about yoga, definitely let me know. Put it in the comments. I would love to read some more about it. I would really appreciate any recommendations that you have. Next is just a second copy of a book that I already own, and that's A Dance with Dragons by George R.R. Martin. This is actually just the first half of A Dance with Dragons, but look how thick it is, and it's only the first half. But the reason that I got this paperback edition is because my regular edition is this really nice leather-bound edition, and actually I've only been reading from these leather-bound editions. I've read the first 4 books in the leather-bound, but I really want to start annotating and writing as I continue in this series, but I really don't want to write in these super nice editions, so that's why I got this paperback edition. I could write in it and I'm not gonna feel bad about it because it was like 10 bucks. So yeah, I got this first half of the edition. This is another book on my 23 books I want to read in 2023. And I think it's pretty cool that it's divided up into 2 editions. So if I want to take a break halfway through, obviously it's gonna stop somewhere that's logical to make a pause, and then I can maybe fit something else in between reading the 2 editions. So that's A Dance with Dragons. Another George R.R. Martin book that I just recently got is Fire and Blood. So obviously this is the book that House of the Dragon is based on. Well, at least a portion of this book, the House of the Dragon, is based on it. I really wanted to have an edition of this book, even though I'm probably not gonna read it, at least not in its entirety, until the show is over, because I'd rather just watch the show and be surprised by the show rather than read this, because a lot of people who have read this and then have been watching House of the Dragon say that it's better just to watch the show, because since this is set up kind of like a history book, that it's kind of dry and it doesn't have a lot of details because it's like written as a history book. So because of that, I really just want to attach myself to the TV show, and then once the TV show is over, I'll read this. But I just wanted to have it, you know, since I'm such a big fan, I just wanted to have the book, okay? Next is going to be another book that I'm adding to a collection that I already have, and that's Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix Illustrated Edition by Jim Kay. So I already have the first 4 illustrated editions of the Harry Potter books illustrated by Jim Kay, and they're absolutely beautiful. And at the end of last year, they finally came out with the 5th book, and it's just as beautiful as the first 4. I love collecting these. Like, they're so fun to go back and read and see all the beautiful art that Jim Kay has added. Unfortunately, he's not going to be illustrating books 6 and 7 because I think he's been having some health problems, which is really terrible because he's done such an excellent job on these 5 books. But I am happy that Bloomsbury's not just abandoning the project. So we will still be getting books 6 and 7, just without Jim Kay this time, which is really, really sad. But I'm sure they're going to be beautiful. So anyway, this is Order of the Phoenix. It's stunning. All right, next I'm going to talk about some books that I've already read, but I haven't talked about at all, because these are books that I read at the end of 2022, and I didn't do a recent reads video at the end of 2022 because I just jumped into my favorite books of 2022 video. And then obviously they weren't in the recent reads video that I just did because I was only talking about 2023 reads books in that video. So next is yet another Game of Thrones books, and that's a Game of Thrones graphic novel. They actually take each book and divide it up into, like, I don't know, it's probably like 10 editions of graphic novel adaptations to do one book. So this is just like 1/10 of the first book. I did enjoy this. Obviously, I wouldn't recommend this over just reading the actual books, but I did enjoy reading it. The art was nice, and it was fun, obviously, to jump back to book 1. And these are just really cool editions. I love the size of it, and I think that they're gonna look nice when I get a good few copies of these on the shelf. So like I said, I've already read that book 1 in the graphic novel series, and then I also have the second book in the series, but I haven't read this one yet. But it's just obviously the next book in the series, and I bought these 2 books at the same time. Another book that I got right at the end of last year and I read right away before the end of the year is Important Artifacts and Personal Property from the collection of Lenore Doolin and Harold Morris, including books, street fashion, and jewelry. Saturday, 14 February 2009, New York. Strawn and Quinn Auctioneers by Leanne Shapton. Longest title ever. So this book is super unique. Actually, I mentioned Lena Norms earlier in this video because I got her poetry collection. Actually, this was a recommendation from her. She did a video recommending really short books at the end of last year, and I bought it right away because I was so intrigued. Basically, this book is set up as like a booklet at an auction that is listing all the products that are going to be up for auction, and all the objects that are put onto auction are the belongings of these 2 people, Lenore and Harold, who were in a relationship. But through the descriptions of the objects that are put on auction, we learn more and more about the relationship, like how they got into a relationship, stuff about when they were in the relationship, and then we start to learn more and more about how they broke up, because obviously this auction is happening because they broke up and they need to get rid of a bunch of stuff. So it's just a really unique format. Even though this wasn't the best thing that I've ever read, I really enjoyed the format and its uniqueness. So if you like unique books, I would definitely recommend this, even though it's not an extraordinary book. It's just really fun. Another book that I bought and read right at the end of last year is Have I Told You This Already? Stories I Don't Want to Forget to Remember by Lauren Graham. So obviously Lauren Graham was the actress for Lorelai Gilmore, which is my #1 favorite show of all time. And I think it was 2 years ago I read her other memoir, Talking as Fast as I Can, which I thought was fine. I did like that she talked about Gilmore Girls, but I thought that she would talk way more about Gilmore Girls, so I was a little bit let down on that. And this one isn't even marketed as something where she's going to talk about Gilmore Girls, and she doesn't. She doesn't talk about Gilmore Girls. They're just kind of like a bunch of random stories about her career. And not just because she didn't talk about Gilmore Girls, that's not why I didn't find it interesting. It's just like the most random stories, and I just didn't have a good time reading it. I did immersion read Talking as Fast as I Can. I listened to her narrate the book while I read it, and that improved my enjoyment of that book. So maybe I should have done the same thing with this. Just hearing her voice made it more enjoyable before. So I guess guess if you're kind of interested in this, I would probably recommend the audiobook. I mean, I didn't listen to it, but I imagine that that would make it better. Anyway, this is something that I bought, but I don't think that I would really recommend it. All right, next are some books that I have recently bought, but I did just recently read them. I talked about them in my recent reads video, which I'll link down below if you're interested in hearing a lot more detail about these books and what I thought about these books. All of that is available in that video, so make sure you check that out if you're interested. So first is Fire Cannot Kill a Dragon by James Hibberd. This is a non-fiction kind of like biography of the Game of Thrones TV show. There's a lot of anecdotes, interviews about everything that happened on the TV show from season 1 to season 8. I really loved this. Next is Earthlings by Sayaka Murata. This is a book in translation from the Japanese. This was pitched to me as a super weird book. Personally, I thought it was going to be even more weird. I thought it was fine. I think I gave it 3 stars. But again, if you want to hear more details, check out that recent reads video. Next is In the Miso Soup by Ryo Murakami. I loved this one. It's another book in translation from Japanese. Basically, it follows a nightlife guide in Tokyo, and some things get really weird and kind of scary when he starts taking this American named Frank around the Tokyo nightlife. Would definitely recommend this one. Next is a thriller that just recently came out, and that's Mothered by Zoji Stage. I kind of went off into a rant at the end of my recent reads video when I talked about this one. Honestly, I just couldn't shut up about what I didn't like about this book. So if you're interested in hearing me rant about this book, how much I didn't like it, go check out that video. On the other hand, another new release thriller that I did enjoy was The Drift by CJ Tudor. Really enjoyed this snowy, isolated, multiple POV thriller. Definitely recommend this one. And then I talked about how I'm interested in learning more about the benefits of meditation, and that I read The Miracle of Mindfulness, and I said in that recent reads video that I didn't really like this one so much. It wasn't what I was hoping to get out of it because I wanted to learn more about the benefits of meditation, and this really wasn't that. Alright, so those are all the books that I've hauled within the last 2.5 months. I'm really excited about all of them, particularly the Women's Prize for Fiction books. Definitely let me know if you think that there's something in particular you think that I should get to sooner than the rest of the books. I would love to hear your thoughts on these. Are there any here that you've already read and loved? Let me know. If you didn't love them, don't tell me yet because I don't want to be less excited about reading them. You can tell me that after I read them and do a little recent reads video. But if you loved anything, definitely tell me that because that will make me even more excited to read it. If you like this video, please give it a like. I would really appreciate it, and subscribe if you haven't already. I would love to have you back. I would love for you to see the recent reads video once I get to these books, and you'll be able to see my thoughts on them. And I'll talk to you again next time. Bye!